I'll invite people to.
Hello. This is Mike D and we're back together for a second round.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so while people jump on, we're going to forward these to ourselves. Mike and I are coaches. We work with all kinds of people, and I have a background in psychology and psychotherapy. We did our Facebook Live the other day on kindness, and within that, we've now moved on to something that really brings that very much together with what men can struggle with.
Sure.
And as I've said many times, this is an issue dear to my heart because I see men struggle just as much as women, particularly with relationship issues. You just don't talk about it. And it goes anywhere from small time anxiety, which actually isn't small time, but to really dangerous situations of risk-taking, depression, anxiety, pornography, addictions, and homelessness,
yes.
Which is interesting because we also have a great passion for people who get into a situation where they have nothing and are forced to receive, when actually that can take away so much autonomy. So essentially what oftentimes we do, and men struggle with it a lot, is completely sabotage themselves and set themselves up for real difficulty, primarily in my opinion, because they don't ask for help. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So thank you for having me again, Poppy. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
My name is Mike D, or Mike Delgado. I have a background in coaching as well as psychology, not as a psychologist, but as a coach. I used to work for Tony Robbins. I was one of his peak performance coaches. I got to travel with him. I got to attend a lot of his events. Life-changing stuff. And what I'm going to share with you as well as Poppy today is just talking about something that we call vulnerability a little bit too. I think that's what it really boils down to. But I'm just excited to be here with you guys and just for the opportunity to share this word.
Can you say a little bit about the kinds of people you see in coaching?
I see everybody. I honestly see a little bit of everything, from the soccer mom to a multi-million-dollar business owner to an entrepreneur to athletes. I mean, across the board. So it's hard to kind of put my clients into a box necessarily, but I see them all over the place. Husbands, wives, kids. I've worked with kids as young as 8 years old. Which people think, well, why, as a life coach, would you work with somebody that's 8 years old? They're just beginning life. But the sooner you start, the sooner you get there. That's something I learned from Tony Robbins. So you really, in my opinion, you can't really start soon enough. There's a point where you kind of can't take in that information, but I think anywhere between that 8-year-old that I started coaching, I think he's about 15 now, but he's a professional tennis player.
Oh,
now,
okay.
So he's a different 8-year-old. Here he was when I spoke to him. They knew that was his pedigree and that's where he was going to go.
Yeah.
So all over the place, really. My clients are all over.
Would you agree? What would you say about the idea that men suffer just as much as women with emotions? They just don't talk about it.
I think men suffer, like we posted in the title, either just as much or even more. Because a lot of that time when we get that pent up suffering, it gets to that boiling point where we almost explode. And you see it sometimes come out as anger, frustration, abuse, whether it's physical abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, whatever it is. It gets to that point where we don't let it out. A lot of times, from my experience at least, women they're better at venting than us men are. So that helps kind of relieve some of that pressure. So in my experience, it's been tremendous, really.
Would you say people know that? Would you say men wherever they are walking around in life, would you say they generally know that other people struggle in the same way as them? Other men struggle in the same way as them?
I think they're aware of it, but I don't think they want to kind of raise their hand and say that to me for ego purposes. Me, myself, like I mentioned to you guys, my last name is Delgado. I'm of Hispanic descent. So a lot of us, especially Hispanic or Latinos, we have this like macho mentality where we have to kind of own it, you know what I mean? And we have to be that strong man and all that, and kind of club our woman and bring her home with us, the old caveman kind of depiction of it. So that's kind of instilled in a lot of us, in our blood. So we have to put up that facade to maintain that. And to me, the best thing that I did was break through that, because that was so limiting for me as far as really experiencing who I am and dealing with some of the things that I've dealt with in my life.
Do you mind saying a little bit about that? What shifted for you that you're able to do it differently?
Sure. I mean, I went most of my life trying to put up that facade, to be the cool guy, to be someone I really wasn't. It's somebody that I thought I wanted to be, but ultimately it wasn't. It was kind of a guard or a shield that protected me from my real self, because I didn't think others were going to accept or love me for my real self. And I think all of us deal with that to a certain extent, but like we were talking about, men, they don't want to have that rejection, especially when it comes to their masculinity or manhood. And for me, a lot of times our identity is tied into that. So for me, it was a hard thing to kind of accept and to acknowledge, but as soon as I did, my life really changed, because I stopped. And one of the things that one of my coach told me, if he's on the video, if he sees the video, his name's Dave Blomsterberg, shout out to you, Dave. The best advice that you gave me was this. You said, it's none of my business what other people think about me. And the first thing I said, like, whoa. What do you mean it's none of my business what other people think about me? Because you're talking about me. How is it not my business if I'm the subject of conversation? And then I said that. And then I kind of thought about it a little bit, and I stepped back. And I'm like, all right, well, he's good at what he does. Let me kind of think about it a few times more. And when I actually looked into it and started to really think about it deeply, I realized that they're able to have their own opinions, and it doesn't really regard me. It doesn't. It's their own formulation of who I am, not who I think I am. And I used to confuse the two and kind of mold the two, really. So that's why I was my whole life, dependent on praise from outside sources, dependent from whether it's my mother, whether it's my friends, whether it's a girlfriend, a wife, whoever it was in my life. I needed that outside confirmation or just support to be able to understand who I was. And that moment was the big turning point, though, when I really understood that it wasn't about what other people thought about me, it's what I thought about myself.
What would you say the consequences are before you got to that shift point where you started looking up at you and what you could do about it? What would you say were the consequences for you, but also for people that you meet in your work?
So the consequences of not being myself, is that what
exactly.
you mean? Yeah. So a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of struggle, a lot of strife that I didn't need to go through necessarily, that I see now in hindsight, being 2020. And a lot of time lost. I don't want to say wasted, because I learned a tremendous amount through those periods of struggle. But there was time that was lost, and I could have had that time back, especially if I knew what I knew then. We could always go down that road, right? But I feel like I might have been a little bit further down the road, who knows? But pain, time lost. I mean, there's so many things that are entwined in that, and especially when it comes to the pain, a lot of people get in that cycle of it because they remain comfortable in the pain, which sounds weird. When we feel or when we think of pain, we don't think of it as a comfortable place. But a lot of us have gotten comfortable in that place. So it's a matter of really stepping outside of that place, because we don't know what's outside of it. We can count on that pain every day. So that's what, for me personally, and a lot of the clients that I've worked with, that's the reason they stay in it, is because they know it and they're aware of it, and it's something familiar to them.
Would you say there's an irony in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you talk us through a bit? Is that right?
Sure. I mean, the thing with me personally is that I've realized once I was able to step outside of that comfort zone, and I was able to really understand who I was and act like it, not just talk about it, but act like it, the grass was greener on the other side, because that was the life I was always meant to live. So as soon as I made that decision to step out into that uncertain territory, what ended up happening was, I was challenged. There was things that kind of tested it, that gave me that second look or glance of, hey, maybe I made the wrong decision. But as soon as I started to go down that road, the great thing that happened was momentum started in that direction, and I kept going in the other direction for so long. So it was a weird feeling, even uncomfortable, But as soon as I started to walk down the path of the life I was meant to lead, I mean, things just started to work. Things fell into place. But it started with vulnerability, like I was mentioning earlier, just being raw. Because vulnerable to me, and we talked about it a little bit the other day, is being real, is being organic, sharing who you are and what you are, and just this is what it is. You know what I mean? Take it or leave it. You don't have to love me, but it's me. And that whole comfort of understanding that concept was huge to me. Really, really big.
And what happens if you don't love you? What happens if you put yourself out there and somebody rejects it in some kind of a way? You've taken that risk.
Sure. If somebody rejects you, that still doesn't necessarily mean you can't love you. A lot of times, like we were just saying, you'll judge who you are based on how other people think of you. But when you really truly look at it for yourself and who you are, it's not really tied into that whatsoever. So to me, it was just a matter of knowing that I'm not going to win every game. I'm an athlete, so I always talk about games or wins and losses. I'm not going to win every game. You know, even the best team doesn't win every game. So again, not everybody's going to like me. And just going up to it saying, hey, maybe that next person will though. And maybe that message that I might bring to that person will change their life. And that's what just keeps me going. So that's why I share my vulnerability, and I do it up front. Just like, you know, if we're going back to the old school chivalrous, what men would do and go first kind of mentality or open that door, I always open that door of vulnerability to let them know I'm here and I'm showing you who I really am, so you can feel more comfortable to do the same.
Okay. And would you say that invites people, actually people respond?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have an example?
I mean, I have lots of examples personally. I mean, I can talk about a friend of mine who's a client. One of his ultimate goals, he had business success. He was in great physical shape. So he had all those things covered, but he wanted love. He wanted love so bad, as a lot of us do. And we just celebrated Valentine's Day. And I know a lot of people out there like, man, if you're single, I don't have somebody today, and it's kind of depressing, or it's down, you know, it makes me feel down. But one thing that he wasn't doing was he was letting that outward, you know, I'm buff and I'm in good shape and I make money and I have my own company lead, as opposed to him leading. He didn't want to let those people in. So I told him, I'm like, well, if you want to have somebody in your heart, you have to let them into your heart. That sounds simple, right? But it's not. And a lot of times you have these walls or guards up around it, and it's a matter of really taking them down, because there's no point in having them up anyway, because what they really do, they don't protect you from what's out there, they keep you from what's out there. It's that shift of understanding that this is not about protecting myself. I am in a corner now that I painted myself into that isn't where I want to be, that doesn't make me happy. So a lot of us, we keep asking, well, why don't I have this? Well, you're in that cage. So if you want to get out of the cage, get out of the cage. You know, it's really that simple as far as the steps. Yeah. But it's the psychology, and that's something Tony talked about a lot too. The mechanics of getting out of the cage are simple. Yeah. It's only 20% of the game, but the psychology is 80% of the game, and that's a way bigger step of really overcoming. So that's really what it's about, and that's the journey we took him on. And he finally got it. And I, again, like I was talking about, I led the way. I shared some stuff with him about what I had gone through in my life, you know, being married early, young, at 19 years old, getting divorced, finding that I lost myself. All those things for him to kind of be like, okay, I can trust this guy. I can trust myself, really, ultimately, to go ahead and share who I am without worry of judgment.
What would you say, just pick a figure, statistic-wise, of people you've met, is generally how men actually go about this stuff? Us men, for the most part, I'm not putting everybody into a category, but we're very, very simple. Like 1 + 1 = 2. And sometimes that works, sometimes it does not. And a lot of times we get caught up in that. And we think that it's only the surface level. And that's why a lot of times male and female have a difficult time communicating, because the woman might be on this level, which is deeper beneath the surface, and we're kind of up here on the surface level. So it's that disconnect on level or depth of the heart, really is what it is, not even the conversation, but our commitment to the conversation or to the person we're conversating with. What I might say in here is that the men that I work with, and bearing in mind this is issues for women too, is about disclosure and about risk and about symptoms.
Sure.
If I talk about men again a little bit, the kinds of clients I meet for anything from mentally ill people to young vulnerable adults on the street, for example, to innovative, hard-hitting, high-achieving men who are top of their game in one area, but in another area there's a pluck, there's an area of conflict, and often it's around relationships and challenging people and asserting themselves with people, and there is anything symptom-wise from some of the things that you've mentioned, I've mentioned, and my experience is men generally don't know that there are people struggling in this kind of a way.
Yeah.
What people tell me is, that really they're in a shame-based place of, I'm not worthy. It's classic, I'm not worthy. If I try, I'll fail.
Yep.
Life is hard. It's generally the things that keep us all down. And I find it devastating, which is why I've grabbed hold of you because we do similar work. Because it's kind of like I want to do an expose to say to people, please, my word, help yourself by listening to what we're saying. I mean, how many times...
You're not alone. I think that's the thing too. We put ourselves on that desert island.
Yeah.
Per se, like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person that's struggling with this, and woe is me, I can't get out of this, martyr, victim, whatever you want to call it. But you're not alone. I've been there. Even though Poppy is not a guy, and we're talking about guys primarily right now, she knows. She's been there.
Yeah.
We've all, if we're being honest, we've all been there. So you're not alone. You're not alone. I've been there many more times than I've wanted to be in my life, honestly. But like I was mentioning earlier, those times have really brought me to where I'm at today, to understand the full picture. And some of us are stubborn, like myself. I've been pretty stubborn my whole life. And that's why I've had to beat that dead horse over and over and over again. And then people are like, man, that thing's been dead for a long time. Why do you keep kicking it? It's because I that's all I know.
Yeah, exactly. We do what we know. The thing with this issue as well, and it's for all people, is, okay, you're in the personal development field, so am I. There's been all kinds of experiences that we use in order to inform our work. However, there's a lot of people and a lot of men who don't even know this is happening to them. So, for example, there's a lot of people who get themselves busy. Whatever it is, it has to be perfect, or I've got one more thing that I need to do, and if I'm a man, I get my sense of worth from each project that I put my mind to. And actually that is a brilliant distractive method from the fact something's missing.
Yes.
We will overcompensate in some kind of area. And this is the bit that breaks my heart, is people who wouldn't necessarily think to get into coaching or psychology, or certainly psychotherapy, because there is a thing about all of us, but with guys a lot, where there's a knowing that something is wrong, and yet this kind of spraggling to, no, that's not happening. And there's degrees of consciousness, conscious awareness, where, there's, even for people who push it away a lot, there is going to be this recurrent sense of dread, of heaviness, of depression, of whatever it might be, and it will show up in physical symptoms, and it will show up in behaviour and all kinds of things. And this is the classic that I talk about a lot. I mean, look at the body language. People. It will show up again and again and again in situations, in real life situations, where, I don't know, let me think of an example. Well, here we go. It's back to a client of mine we spoke a bit about the other day, who was saying, I do not understand why, he was like this, he was furious, why it is necessary for me to look at what I do with my feelings and the fact that I don't take care of myself and that I'm not present to me. Why would that affect the way other people treat me? And interestingly, this morning, I did a review with him. And if I might just say for a second.
Absolutely.
This is a specific example, but this is how it can become extreme. And if I know one thing about this beautiful-hearted man, he'd want me to tell you this, which is he had a very overpowering mum and a very absent dad. And what he did was learn, I need to be this particular way to please mum, and I need to do all kinds of things to please dad. If I just go with his mum for a minute, because how it showed up was in his relationship, he was always trying to please the woman, and he came second. And in my opinion, this happens with a lot of men I see anyway.
I'm guilty, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And men often come to me because they know I'm sort of an advocate for the issue, not, I'm not going to be biased one way or the other. I'm about the client. And so with this guy, he has a very familiar track, really, that he'll fall for the mother to try and please and repair what hasn't been possible to do. And it frustrates him. So he's like, I want these women to be this certain way, and because they're not, he treats himself poorly. He obsesses, he keeps himself busy. He's a very functional, well-known documentary maker. He has a beautiful eye for struggle and does not want to look at his own. And what he does is he's had a fierce eating disorder since he was a kid, bulimia. And these recurring thoughts about one-track mind, this will never get better, these women are never going to love me in the way I want, and I don't, it's not about me, these people don't appreciate me, he says. I'm never appreciated, I'm never acknowledged.
Sure.
And this was who's not acknowledging you? Because he didn't.
He's not acknowledging himself.
And he didn't want to hear it. We don't want to hear this stuff. And actually, so I assessed him, and only a few months ago, actually, I'm trying to edit myself. The truth is, in 20 years of practice, I've never hospitalised anybody. And this time I said, listen, you have a choice. You can take your life, or you can look at doing it differently. But right now, he didn't feel safe. He went into hospital. All kinds of weird and wonderful things and work that we did and involved people and so on. But I assessed him today. He's been on holiday. We talked a bit about what's been going on, and his mood. I turned on the Skype, and he was. I said, "Your hair looks fantastic," and he smiled.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that since I pushed him around when we first met. And I said, "What has shifted? Let me really go through this, bearing in mind here we are, and it's a perfect example, and the universe has given me something really powerful." He said, you said something to me when I was in hospital, which was, what if there's no way you can fail? Because he was all about what I'm not doing right and how people don't love me, and, it's everybody else's issue.
Sure.
And he said that it just opened up my mind to a lot of possibilities without this blocking. I'm mindful I wanted to check in with other people. But also, he did his homework. He actually did, this kind of repetitious, repetition breeds belief, is that what it is?
Yep.
He worked hard, he got a coach, and he did his homework, and he worked hard, and he started to train himself about this. But he said actually what shifted it for him was the experiential action. Yeah. Rather, he's a real intellectualizer, and you guys intellectualize, rationalize, project, globalize. I mean, there's all these wonderful weird words, but I'm sure you know what it is. It's whatever we can do to push it away. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. I overthink. I get too clinical sometimes. But that was actually the doing. Was he started to set limits and be consistent. And what can happen, of course, and this is why, in my opinion, why we will avoid doing things differently, is things change. Yes. And sometimes we have to say goodbye to people.
The only constant thing in life is change. Period. So I mean, let's wrap our minds around that real quick. I know that's kind of a crazy, thing to kind of think about, but it's true. That's the only thing we can count on is change. So if you don't like change, get over it. Seriously, because you're going to deal with it. And to go back to what you were saying about the documentary maker, you mentioned that he's good at honing in on struggle, right? And in my opinion, and I don't know the gentleman, but it's because he's not focusing on his own. 100%. So he's taking that energy and seeing it outwardly, which is serving him. And that's probably why he doesn't want to let go of it, because he's a great filmmaker because of that. but it's kind of playing into his personal life in a different 100%. Way. And one other point to what you were talking about was the kind of like head under the sand mentality and not really focusing on what's going around or going on around you. So even if you're not focusing on what's going around you, that's focusing on that.
Exactly.
And where Tony says this, wherever focus goes, energy flows. So if we're focusing on not focusing, that's what we're going to get. Yeah. And the results do not follow that. The results do not come with the lack of focus on or of not focusing, We have to focus our mind and be in alignment or congruency with what we do want to see out of ourselves.
Yeah. But again, therein lies the irony, because the focus is a creative focus.
Sure.
Because it keeps you away from what it is you know and what it is you want and what it is you feel. So we have to have it.
Yes.
So I find very anxious people will be, I don't want it to be this way and I have to do it some other way. And I'm like, but you're being brilliant. You have this coping strategy, which is brilliant. It's doing its job. And then we go, well, I don't want to be like that. Well, it's like having a friend who's stepping in going, you don't want to know this? Okay, I'll keep it busy. And then we go, but my friend is messing it up. And we get really stuck.
Sure.
And I really feel for people because I wonder what we do. I wonder what we do to help particularly men to look at the truth of how this backfires. Really and truly backfires. So people are heartbroken, they're isolated, they're alone. And it goes for all kinds of people, because my experience is, unless we are, I guess as Brene, or who is it, who Brene quotes in the arena, I forget who she's quoting when she says that, but unless we're in the arena doing the doing, really nothing's gonna shift. But I was saying, as I did a sort of ad for this today, it is an epidemic in my opinion, and my heart breaks because people don't want to look at it. So it's this kind of disconnect between how all people, men, want relationships, they want somebody to stop being how they're being, or somebody to listen to them, somebody to hear them, somebody to encourage them, and yet sit in silence for fear that you're going to lose somebody.
Sure.
And it's a tough one to think, how do you start to grasp it? It's kind of like, I did this group therapy thing years ago where people, it was the men's group, was stubbornly saying nobody does this, it's just us because we're all mentally ill and crazy and all that. And I got so pissed about it. And I got into a bit of trouble, but I didn't care. I went onto the street and said, you guys, come, men, come. And we all came, it was brilliant. Yeah. Came into the room, and there was a guy, particularly, he worked for a bank, I don't know, Facebook will kill me if I say the bank, a cocaine addict, clinically depressed forever, relationships just nothing to really hold on to, suicidal for years, and people in the group who'd got to really, really ill were looking at him going, wow, we see people like you in the street all the time, you look so put together, you have everything. And he said, I didn't know people existed like you who've also had these experiences. I think you people look fine because you're free, you're in the army or the navy or whatever, and we do this projection thing. There are so many people, and I would love to do that, is just go around the planet and get people to talk about this issue. Because it literally can kill people.
It is. I mean, and that leads to suicide in a lot of cases, is what you're just speaking of.
Yeah.
And I think,
I'm going to interact a bit.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to see who's saying something.
I mean, one of the things with me that I think about when we talk about this, and acknowledging that it is both a male and female problem, but like we said, sometimes the males have a harder time dealing with it, or having it fixed, because I feel that the approach needs to be different to address it in a male as opposed as it is in a female. So since we are, like I mentioned before, especially myself, I was the strong, like outwardly, kind of guy. You need to hit it with that as far as the approach is concerned. You can't be like, hey, we gotta fix it and do that. That's not gonna work. That's rapport 101. We gotta make sure that we're matching who we're talking to. And with men, sometimes you got to hear what you don't want to hear to shock. And a lot of times that gets thrown off because especially in personal development field, it's a lot of people assume that it's a positive thing, and there is a lot of positivity with personal development, but it's going through those negative things sometimes which will get us out of that comfort zone to make that move. And the thing that's crazy is that, like we just said, it can lead to suicide, it can lead to homelessness, it can lead to divorce, it can lead to bulimia, it can lead to a cocaine addiction, it can lead to all these things that we're talking about. But if you want to lead yourself to live the life that you're always meant to live and the life that you've always wanted to live, you got to get back to that common denominator, which is you, and really understand you, whether it's something you would like to see back in the mirror or not, and address it. And that's where I feel like a lot of us will not go to because of the pain associated with it.
Yeah. Do you know, as you were talking, I'm thinking about a guy in London who I work with who was, he wasn't. He was under pressure all the time from family to be the best. And in order to please everybody, he forged degrees in law.
Wow.
And he was so ashamed that he could never be enough. He would not speak about it. And it went wrong. And we get these sort of little pinches from life to say, really, this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
And he didn't listen. It wasn't a problem. You know, I don't have to please anybody. It's not a problem. I'm just going to... And he spent his time walking around London with a briefcase, pretending to be a lawyer. And people started to find out, so he started to lie about it more and more. And he would bless him, in this shame place of being completely isolated. And it basically ended up with him forging... he got involved in forging credit card fraud and all this kind of stuff, and he got caught because he did some very simple thing wrong, which in my opinion was a cry for help, and he ended up in prison. And then came out and was homeless because he was so ashamed again to ask for anything. I'm a failure, and he did the very thing he felt he was being told he would always be, is less than, you'll never achieve. And it nearly, I mean, look at the sabotage and the things that he lost through, in my view, which he wouldn't have learned, so it's a tough one unless we get help, is to say, Dad, back off. I don't want to do law. And when we don't grow up with somebody saying, what actually do you want to do? What are you interested in? I love you anyway. You're enough anyway.
Sure.
We don't have that modelling a lot of the time. He didn't have the resources, and many of us don't have the resources to say, back off, I want to study music, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
He wanted a restaurant. That's what he wanted to do, is make pasta.
Sure. And you say resources, I say whether you're male or female, balls. Because it takes courage, it takes balls to step up and say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I was made to do. Especially, there's a lot of cultures that from the time you were born, basically, you were already predestined to be a lawyer, to be a doctor, to be whatever, you know, follow in your father's footsteps, take over the business, kind of a thing. And, you know, there's that pressure that we feel. Especially as men too, because we want to also be that breadwinner. We also want to take care of our family. We also want to be the provider, so on and so forth. So we think, okay, what I want is not going to pay the bills. What I want is not going to be enough. So I'm going to settle, and I'll do something that'll kind of get me by. But when you make that decision to settle to try to get by, that's the way the rest of your life goes. It's the first domino that falls that keeps it going. So you have to stop that progression or that progress in that direction, because, well, unless you want to keep on that path, which I hope you guys don't, but you have to stop it and then address it and go the way you decided to go, the way that your heart is telling you to go, whether it's scary or not.
So what if, I mean, if I'm a kind of hard-hitting academic, let's say, I'm a real thinker, and I want to get fit, and I tell you, you know what, Mike, you know, honestly, I'm not so happy with at home right now. I'm imagining somebody like you might jump on that one. Where might you take that?
I would tell them to stop thinking about it.
Okay.
First of all, are you an expert in it? Probably not. If you're not in the gym and you're not in the shape you want to be, more than likely, I'm not saying every single case, because a lot of times some people will have the knowledge, but they don't just take the action. But for the most part, we don't have that inside of us. So rely on an expert. Like a coach, a psychologist, or a trainer in this example, for a personal trainer. Don't try to figure out, especially if we're analytical, especially if we have all these things in our head and you don't know what you're doing, what does it matter what's in your head if you have no clue what you're doing? So rely on somebody that does to assist you throughout the process, which will free you up to actually be present in the process to get the results you want, as opposed to you running in circles and thinking you're doing what you're doing, but you're just chasing your tail.
Yeah.
And probably further frustrating yourself, further taking yourself away from the goal or outcome that you want to have anyway in the first place.
Yeah.
So I would just tell them to stop thinking about it. You know, paralysis by overanalysis. That's something that happens all the time. We overthink something to death to the point where we feel like we're further back than where we started.
Yeah. So where's the balance then between taking it seriously that something's difficult and it, I guess, shutting you down? A lot of guys I meet just feel really shut down. Does that make sense?
Sure.
The difference between overdoing it and underdoing it.
Yeah. I think there's that internal barometer that you kind of know. There's that intuition, whatever you want to call it, that you kind of know if you're half-assing it or not. Whether you have the knowledge about it or not, you can tell if somebody's committed or not. You can, you know, for example, I played ice hockey my whole life, you know, so I've helped teach a lot of people how to ice skate. So I've taught, I don't even know how many people, but there's some people that I'll take that they, you know, the first time that they go out, they'll, you know, just kind of expect me to take it for them and basically like be their training wheels, for example. And then there's the people that have never done it and they don't know how to do it, but they're willing to take what I'm telling them and implement it and try their hardest and best at it. And the results are tremendously different. So the thing is that it's the heart, it's the effort, it's the commitment, and it's really taking yourself out of the equation and just giving it your best. Don't judge yourself based on, you know, me. Like, for example, if I was teaching these people, they're not going to expect to skate as well as I have if I've skated my whole life. And some people that it's their first time expect that.
Well, I was just going to say, they do.
Some people do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such an unrealistic expectation. I think that's the problem that we have in life in general. We have so many unrealistic expectations. Media, TV, reality TV, right? All these things really fog up our reality of what reality really is. So we expect these things, like when you hear it, like for example, in music, there's somebody, oh my gosh, they're an overnight success. If you really knew the story, they might have been in the industry for 10 years, but we just heard about them and we think they just fell onto the scene. They've been busting their behind for 10 years trying to get on there. So we think, some people from the outside say, oh, well, I can just record something on YouTube and boom, there it is. And I'm not saying for you guys out there, sometimes that works. You can get found and you can have an amazing talent and boom, you're there. But for the majority of us, that's not the case.
And a lot of people can use that as an excuse not to try. Is, you know, with any of us and any situation that we're looking at is, well, that doesn't happen to people like me.
Yeah.
As opposed to, they've worked really hard.
Yeah.
And we can project all kinds of stuff. Well, they're rich.
Sure.
They've got this, that, and the other. I don't have that. What if you don't have that? What if you don't have connections? What if you don't have resources?
Go get some. Go make some. I mean, really.
It's harsh, isn't it?
I mean, seriously, if you're complaining, why don't you do something about it? If you don't like what's going on, stop wallowing in it and do something, okay? I'm not meaning to be harsh, but if you guys really want this, you're gonna heed what I'm telling you, okay? Because the fact of the matter is, guys, is that you have to. If you don't focus on this stuff, guys, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. And at the end of the day, everybody's different. Everybody has a different perspective. Everybody has a different outcome of what they are and what they want to be. So don't try to place somebody else's on your own. Really, that's what the whole point of this vulnerability thing that we talked about in the beginning as well. Because when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, not only outwardly with other people, but especially with yourself. When you're vulnerable with yourself, you're able to understand and see things that you never would have. And to me, that was such a game changer for me. Because then I understood, because in my life, for example, I got into real estate at a young age because I wanted to make money. That was the first thing I thought. I could have freedom of schedule. I could make as much money as I want. There's no cap on my salary, for example. But then I really understood it was more about helping people once I really started to think about it more. And then that wasn't enough. And then I worked for Tony Robbins and blah, blah, blah. And I can go on and on. But the fact is I understood at that moment that it wasn't about the money, but it was about serving others. It was about helping others. So that was the route that I decided to keep pursuing and going after, was that. And then I was honest with myself about it and went for it. I didn't have the resources. I mean, when I worked for Tony Robbins, all I had as far as psychology training was some college courses at a junior college that I didn't even finish, okay? And some tapes, you know what I mean? That's it. But again, the resources and not having any, what did I do? And I shared this with Poppy. I bugged the hell out of them. I got compelled at one of his events to say, I have to work for this guy. What am I gonna do? I found a way to meet him. I got in front of him, okay? I used the resources that were in front of me to make it happen. And then, as soon as that happened, then I got in front of the guy I needed to get in front of for the interview. And he had the stack of of resumes and applications like this on his desk. But that didn't matter to me at that point, because I'd already been in front of the person I needed to be in front of. And I was there and they were not. So no matter how much you have or how little you have, irrelevant, honestly, to me. Maybe it might make it a little easier if you have more, but that's not always the case. And sometimes the people that have more in the way you think it's easy are lacking in other areas or other realms of their life.
So if with that, somebody says, oh, there's so much competition then.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's going to make you better.
Let me come back to a little bit about where things can really get bad
Mm-hmm.
for people who don't go for broke, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
and don't risk and don't look at vulnerability. I don't like the word don't, I'm overusing it, but who settle, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose,
Yeah.
and who don't listen to that internal voice that says something's up.
Mm-hmm.
And the costs and consequences to people, because we see it.
Sure.
But, some of these examples, I'm guessing, would put hairs on some of your chests. Which are, these are, I could tell you a million stories of people who many of us would look at and think they've got it together.
Sure.
Absolutely not. In the extreme, it can take people, and men obviously particularly, because of a sense of I need to be providing something.
Mm-hmm.
When we start to lose ourselves
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way and start to lose resources because things start to backfire, we lose people, we lose homes,
Yeah.
we sabotage money, we gamble, we do whatever it is. In its worst forms, it can take people to drug addiction, to homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
to prostitution, and men do it too. A lot
Yeah.
of men do it too. In every way, it's incredible what we don't know. And then there is, of course, the hidden homeless people
Mm-hmm.
who nobody knows about, because I don't know how it is in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
but in London they do a head count, which is
Mm-hmm.
difficult because
Yeah.
it's so transient as
Sure.
a city. And it is people that you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
There's an article that's been written recently in the Telegraph in London about a guy who was a city working full-time guy, and I forget what profession he was in, but he said homelessness doesn't happen to people like me, was something he would always say as he would walk past the homeless and
Mm-hmm.
not look at them and not give them money, and they smell and he's crazy and they must be schizophrenic and drug addicted.
Sure.
And shortly, and this is the funny thing, as I was saying the other day, my hair's standing on end. There's a fine line between all of us, which
Yeah.
is where the kindness piece came in the other day. There's
Mhm.
a fine line between you and I and whomever. He found himself on the street, and one of the things he talks about is he never in his life asked for help and said, mate, I'm struggling,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not sure I want to be with this woman,
Yeah.
or what. And the avoidance of the inner knowing
Mhm.
took to choice after choice after choice after choice, where he would sit across from a woman and go, I don't even like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that all the time with my clients.
Mhm.
It gets to the point, oh, I eat pizza most nights because my girlfriend likes it. Do you like pizza? Absolutely not. I would never eat it. If I wasn't with her, I would never eat pizza. But you know about homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if there's one thing maybe this video can do is scare people
Mm-hmm.
to say, and you guys as well, take it seriously, because what I find is men do their back in,
Sure.
literally, and
Yeah.
it's sort of symbolic,
Mm-hmm.
holding everything and it's busting my gut to please somebody or whatever it is.
Sure.
Men will do their back in, heart attack, pancreatic cancer,
Mm-hmm.
panicking, self-harm, you name it, struggle. And when it gets really, really to the ground, people end up homeless.
Yeah.
And the prevalence of homelessness in men.
It was 70-30, right, in San Diego, which blew my mind, in favor of male versus female. And I really, I used to be very analytical. I'm not as much anymore because I realized that me overanalyzing the analytical part of me is what disabled me. So not that thank you, not that I'm not analytical or I don't think of the numbers at all, but they're not as important to me as they used to be. Yeah. So that's just it's a staggering fact that you bring up, and it's something that's just crazy to hear. But like the gentleman you spoke of right now, and what I would invite everybody here, whether you're male or female, to really look at and look inside of your heart right now, is to really understand that you're not above anything. Don't let your ego tell you that I would never end up there and those people are just the druggies or the schizos or whatever.
Let me just jump in. As a general, across England, it's 70-30.
Is it really?
Men. Yeah, so it's a gender issue.
Wow. So, I mean, you can be there. You know, never in a million years, you know, are there thoughts of people, you know, I've met a lot of people that had tons of money in their life, millions and millions and millions of dollars that ended up there. Because they thought, you know, well, I'm never going to be there because look at me, I have this and I'm driving in my Rolls Royce and blah, blah, blah.
And I'm not looking at anything.
And exactly, you know, so anybody can be there. So one of the things that I would really advise you guys to do and urge you and really, really challenge you and invite you to do is to step outside of that ego. That ego is never going to do you any good. I'll tell you that right now. Ego, to me, I mean, if you look at it just from a different context, if you look at it in religious context, across the board, almost all religions is the journey away from the ego, the journey away from the self. Because ultimately, in all the religions, pretty much, we believe that there's somebody else that knows more than we do, and that's something we have a hard time understanding because it's my life. You know, how can something else or someone else know more about me than me? And it's that kind of uppity sense that we have about ourselves and our lives that disables us, that keeps us down, or even takes us even further down, like in that gentleman's case of becoming homeless when he was talking negatively about them. So you never know. It can happen to anyone at any time. Yeah.
So I just want to check it because this could be an important point. The difference between ego, me, all about me, one, and then on the other end is what I should be more compassionate and more looking toward others. But
Sure.
How do we balance that?
It's simple. I mean, the most practical way that I can put it is the ego is an independent lifestyle. The self is an interdependent lifestyle. And the self meaning that to really understand who we are. Yeah. Maybe something you might have said to me one day sparked it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be a life coach with Tony Robbins. That's what happened to me. Tony said something that day and it smacked me in the face. And I'm like, well, okay, here we go. I couldn't have come to that conclusion on my own. If he wasn't there speaking that day, used as a vessel in that occasion, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the knowledge I have today. I wouldn't have the experience I had today. And the amazing just education that I received from that as well. It's just tremendous.
Because you took yourself seriously and went to a seminar. Yeah. And now you are a coach. Yeah. With arguably, you have been arguably the biggest, most successful organization in the world. Yeah. Yeah. And you support the homeless. And you have this beautiful project. Yeah. Can you tell us?
Sure. Thank you for bringing that up. So I have an amazing project that's so near and dear to me. Ever since I was a kid, I enjoyed really serving the homeless and doing everything I could. I always had a heart to give and a heart to serve. But I didn't really fully kind of embrace it until recently. And so some of you guys might have seen it that watched our other videos. We even gave a challenge out. So just a reminder, if you guys haven't done University Project Challenge stuff today, do it. Random act of kindness. Then post about it. And then basically, I just want to make sure that you guys are following your hearts, guys. And to me, we're all meant to be able to give. That's why we're here, that interdependent. Tony gave me that knowledge and it took me to the next level. So really, the thing is
I'll have a look while you're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is that the homeless has been so huge to me. So the Mercy Project is a homeless outreach that I have here in San Diego, California. It's a nonprofit, and we're looking to expand across the country in every major city across the U.S. to really not only serve food and goods, but to serve love, to serve kindness, to serve everybody, because they're our fellow human brothers and sisters. So I just want to really let you guys know about that that's the case out there, that if you think you can't do something, you can. I had nothing when I started this, and it turned into a tremendous outreach. Now there's honestly, this coming weekend, we're going to have anywhere between 50 to 70 volunteers. We're going to serve over 300 people. So taking the action, it's not about the resources, it's about your resourcefulness. And if somebody's passionate enough about something, it's going to draw more towards it. So that's what drew me to Tony. That's what a lot of people have been drawn to with the project that I have right now. So that's something that I really urge you guys to do, is just give back, help, be of service to yourself as well as others.
What can we offer people to start with to get more conscious of, one, getting involved in this, and two, getting involved in themselves, to start to listen to that voice, so that we are in a position to be able to help people who haven't quite got there, rather than some of you, and statistically speaking, how many people have we got? 11, 12,000 people who could see this potentially, and then all of you who are going to share it.
Yeah, please share this video.
We're such loving people, we want to help you, and the way you can help us, of course, is to pass this on. May help someone. Goodness knows.
Absolutely.
Who and can be, where can people start so they don't end up in hell?
It's hard to be in that hell if you're serving somebody else. I mean, it really is. It kind of, and it's not a distraction where it takes you out of your mind. It is a slight distraction, but it's not a distraction that will disable you. It's a distraction that will actually enable you. Because when you see that you step out of yourself and you actually help others, it kind of builds up your confidence a little bit. You're like, wow, I actually am making a difference. Actually, I am doing good. I'm not less than. I actually can do this. It brings you that strength and that confidence within yourself to actually then take what you gain from giving to be able to receive. And that's something we don't understand. A lot of times, I want to make this much money. I want to have this car. I want to have this wife or girlfriend or husband or whatever. But we don't realize that a lot of times that happens from giving. You know, it could be effort. You know, like the music example that we brought up. They gave effort for 10 years.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it. But then they finally received that break, if you will, and there they go, you know. So giving leads to receiving, and don't give to receive. Give without the expectation of reciprocation, okay? Give to give. Give because you want it. Because that true giving and that true intent is tremendous of how it actually will impact your life when you have a true heart when you're doing it. It changes the game. Absolutely changes the game.
What small thing can people do to get involved in helping others?
Smile.
Small thing.
Eye contact, like we talked about the other day when I was wearing my sunglasses when we were doing our interview. I felt bad, and some people even commented on it. But little things.
Well, but it's getting conscious about it.
It is.
That's the point.
It
if
is.
it's not in our awareness, we can't do anything with it.
Absolutely. It's being present. You know, show up. You know, when they're taking roll call for life, say here, present. Okay, don't let it pass you by. When they're calling your name, don't ignore it. And those things calling your names could be people, it can be an opportunity, it can be a job, it can be whatever, it can be your life. So pick up the call. Pick up the call if something is calling you.
Okay.
Don't send it to voicemail.
In every way.
In every single way.
So what happens when, because people still watching, if you're still with us, as you've listened, there will be things triggering off in your mind that says, I know that I don't address that. I know that I identify with that. Where can we help people a little bit to begin to go, I actually know this stuff. I know where my block is. I know that there's an issue I'm ignoring. And you will know that it's not going anywhere, otherwise it would have done by now. So how can people start to actually do something with that, take action on that, rather than push it away or judge it or get stuck or go under and end up with you trying to help them on Saturday?
I think it's just understanding the fact that is a pivotal and crucial prerequisite to living the life you've always wanted. So if you know that that is one of the main ingredients, it's like trying to bake a cake without flour. It's not a flourless cake, but the cake requires flour, and trying to do it without it, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a mess. It's not going to taste good. The consistency is going to be off, and nobody's going to want to come back for seconds. So you have to use the right ingredients and bake it at the right temperature for the right amount of time. That's what we are. So when we think in our lives like, oh, I'm impatient, I want this to happen now, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes things take what they take to get to that certain point. And I know I hate that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not preaching to you guys about this because I hate it. Okay? I hate that sometimes things take too long. Patience has been something that I've barely made progress on right now to this point. Like in my whole life, I've been the most impatient man on the planet. If it was Christmas rolling around, I would give the person that I'm giving the gift to 10 days earlier and be like, open it up. I want to see what your reaction is. And same thing with me. If somebody gave me something, I would want to open it right away. I can never have the patience, but I'm telling you right now, patience is required. Patience is necessary to be who you are. And sometimes, like I said, it takes what it takes. Mm-hmm. It's not like something we can just speed through and just click a button. And it's something that we don't understand as much nowadays. And I speak a lot to the centennial and millennial generations about this because you guys grew up in the era of information at the speed of light, basically. So we expect that. That's our level of expectation, when a lot of times that's not the case. Sometimes it is. We can Google something like that, but as far as like, oh, finding my soulmate, and they're not there, you know?
Yeah. Can we put out a challenge to people? I'm thinking of this client that I was talking to today. Experiential knowledge was what shifted him, was mm-hmm. action. Rather than I should do it this way or not that way, or I should read this book or whatever. Mm-hmm. Can we put out a challenge to people so that you can dip your toe in and actually look at evidence that if I do X, then I might feel this way. Then mm-hmm. it might take me on to perhaps taking this a bit more seriously. Then I might meet whomever it is, Gary, me, you mm-hmm. might come see us because we're talking about something. Sure. And suddenly your life is in a very different place than where it might be, okay, good enough, but not actually what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Can we put out a little challenge that maybe is involved in the Mercy Project?
Sure. I don't want to reiterate the whole Mercy Project challenge again on this video too, but I'll post the details in the comments section so you guys can be aware of it. But it's just to sum it up, it's just basically doing random acts of kindness, being kind. And when you're kind, what it does to your life is, it's changed my life so much so. And especially, I was talking to one of my good friends today about it before I came down here. And I've always tried to help. I've always tried to serve. Obviously, I've been running this homeless outreach for about a year now, and it's done a great deal in my life. But the added upping of the ante with this challenge that we've dropped a few days ago it's given me an even deeper presence of it. And really, instead of just randomly being kind, when we say random acts of kindness, I'm actually seeking people I can be kind to. I'm looking, my focus is on, wherever focus goes, energy flows, my focus is on kindness. So I'm seeking any opportunity I can to be kind, on top of my normal inclination. So when you couple those things together, and I know a lot of you guys out there love helping, love serving. So if you can really dial in the focus and make the presence there, as far as seeking kindness, mm-hmm. the way you get it back might not be in that moment, mm-hmm. but the way that kindness is reciprocated back to you in mm-hmm. some way is so amazing. Mm-hmm. And it can be a way you've never expected. It can be a way that you never would have imagined. And that's what I would urge and challenge you guys to do, because a lot of you guys don't like surprises. A lot of you guys don't like that uncertainty. But what if that uncertainty is something that is far greater and far better than you ever could have imagined? How about that? We always think about how bad it could go and how crappy things can be. But how about we think about how amazing it could go if we actually do good? And we need that nowadays, guys. Not just nowadays, but at any time. But especially now. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of division. And something that can mend that just, I don't know. Just that separation that can be mended right now is with kindness, with love. That's what it's all about. Share the love. Okay, please. That's what we're here for.
I asked somebody once what was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to him, and he said that he gave a smile to someone who was in trouble, passing him, noticed he smiled at him, and he said the guy stopped, pulled him back. So this is you looking at me, you notice I'm in trouble, and I'm in trouble, and I smile and pull you back, and the guy gave him a hug, and he said, Poppy, it was the most contact I've ever had, and it was because I connected with someone. I was crying, he was crying, and it was a simple act of I notice what's going on, because I'm not in ego, because I am trying to connect with my environment. And here's a man who actually was very successful, hard-hitting, all the resources you could offer in the world. He didn't have connection with people, and he was completely moved by this. Suddenly stunned him into the here and now. Sure,
and I mean, a lot of times when we're trying to do something, we always shoot for the stars. And I'm not saying not to shoot for the stars, guys, but sometimes it can be that simple thing, like Poppy just mentioned right now, that'll get you there. Like, for example, we just talked about the homeless. For you to serve or for you to be a gift, it doesn't necessarily have to be on that extreme. It can be somebody like me just smiling at Poppy right now. It can be at you, you're going to get your daily cup of coffee and you just say thank you. And you mention the barista by name. Little things like that go a tremendous way. And not only that, how about something like thank you? How about something like pulling the door open for somebody? Little things like that can change the view on humanity for some people. Because that person that you might have held the door open for, they could have been like, man, society sucks and nobody does anything good anymore, and everybody just cares for themselves. And then you, by just going up to that door and being like, oh, I got that. Totally can interrupt that pattern of their life that can be like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to revisit this. Maybe I need to get my head out of my ass and be nice myself.
Yes. So we can give other people experiences
Absolutely.
all the time to break their pattern, to break their story. Nobody loves me, really. There are plenty of people who do. Give them the opportunity. So I'm thinking, okay, how do we help people get in touch with themselves so they can get in touch with other people? And one of the things I know people love, and even people who've been in depression and really in trouble, so suicidal thinking and so on, that I know they love, is to get them into a place where they are aware of what is going on that they're in control of. So, and I never know how to cite this. I don't know if you use it, where you press on the arm, you push back, I'm not worthy, versus I bloody well am. And the energy in somebody will shift immediately from, and I've worked with some really, really in trouble people who go like this to, I am not going to have you push my arm down. And it changes this whole everything. What I know people love, men and women, is to draw a line. I think Tony Robbins does talk about
He does. He
what
uses
the hell is in and what is out.
He uses that example at UPW, Unleash the Power Within, where he'll bring somebody up on the stage and he said, don't let me push you. And he's pushing as hard as he can. And then, and he tells them and guides them in a way of feeling like really depressed. And when you're in that state of mind and you're fighting it, you're going to be easily moved. But when you actually get in this state of mind where you feel rooted and grounded and centered of who you are, you're immovable. And that's something that a lot of times we don't get. We feel like to be immovable, we need to be strong and we need to be forceful. But to be immovable sometimes means to be peaceful. Because sometimes it's not even about being moving, but it's kind of floating in who you are and being in that kind of a state of mind or realm. So it is so crucial and important of where your mindset is, and to understand that it's more than you. At the end of the day, it's more than you, and get over yourself. Again, I know I'm harsh when it comes to stuff like that, but sometimes, a lot of times, that's what I tell myself. I'll look at the mirror and I'll say, get over yourself, dude. Do something about it. Yeah, the muscle testing, as you mentioned, Wes. It's something that's so crucial to just get over and move on, because it disables us. It truly does.
And shift yourself, because we can do it really quickly. I mean, power pose is a perfect example. Put your hands on your hips like Superman or Superwoman or that. Look at it to change your whole physiology, your whole mindset, and everything. So what I was going to say was something that everybody knows, even the most avoidant of us. Put a line down the page, what is in and what is out, and you're going to know the answer. And it's a private exercise. You don't have to show anyone. You can rip it up or burn it or whatever it might be. Allow yourself, please, dear God, you'll save yourself a lot of pain. to write down what is it that's no longer okay for me, that I might just even want to just think about, not necessarily change anything, it's to get in touch with what it is you know.
Yeah. And
sometimes when people stay stuck, you can ask yourself a question. I'm a great fan of this, which is reflective writing. It's just to ask, am I in love with her? You're going to know the answer. And a lot of people start very cognitive. Those of us that like everything to be perfect will tick the boxes. If you allow yourself, ask a question, write, and that knowing part will come out of you and you have the answer. Sometimes, and I'll put myself out of a job maybe, you don't need a psychotherapist or a coach or anything to answer a lot of questions if you listen to yourself.
Yeah.
And this is the devastating thing, is we are educated out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, listening to yourself sometimes can be through somebody like you. So I don't think you'll be put out of a job because you'll give a different perspective. You'll be able to echo themselves back to them in a way they might not have seen or heard. So that's why it is crucial. If you need to work with a psychologist or if you need to work with a coach, and a lot of us do. I'm a coach, I have a coach. She is a coach, she has a coach.
I have 3.
She has 3. So Tony Robbins is the coach of all coaches. He works with over 10 coaches himself. So the thing is that there's never a pinnacle where I know it all and I'm good enough and I don't need that anymore. The same reason why in professional sports there are coaches. It's because if you're in the game, that's the game perspective that the athletes have. But the coach that's either on the sidelines or whatever it may be, or on the bench, can see the whole field of play. Like a psychologist, like a coach, that can help you make that, step or that take that action to help you avoid all the trials and tribulations that we found out the hard way because we were stubborn or impatient or whatever the deal was.
Again and again.
Right? So I mean, that's what I would say, guys, is that it's so crucial. It's so crucial to really have perspective. Perspective is everything to me, because that's it. Like I spoke about just now about kindness. My perspective and focus is on seeking kindness now, as opposed to just letting it happen. Because the odds are far greater if I'm seeking it to find it than if I just happen upon it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would offer to every one of you guys watching here.
And I guess that comes back to personal responsibility, is what are you going to offer other people? Because we get so stuck, but also, to get yourself a team of people is not about this lofty idea of how people, X kinds of people live. It is about you getting resources, and it is getting a team in order to get you to where you want to go. So people who, and I often talk about this, successful. Success is very individual word, whatever that is. A sports car for somebody, a healthy child for another. Who is your team? Because what I know is that most of us don't have a cheerleader who is there for us, who doesn't have an agenda. And that's why people go and find people to mentor them. Because their agenda is to get you to where you're going and slap your ass when you're not doing it, and look at what the blocks are, because we have so many of them.
And you know what the funny thing is, and what you just said made me think about this. A lot of us, we want to be our own cheerleader, but what we actually do is we end up, say we're in a game situation where there's one team against another, we end up becoming a cheerleader for the other team, saying, you suck, you're going to lose, you're not going to win, and then you're sitting there by yourself like, I thought you were with me, what's going on, you know what I mean? So be your own cheerleader, believe in yourself, but know that it's not done by yourself. Like we said earlier, it's interdependently, not independently. Even if it, again, I'll go back to the sports analogy, a single person sport like tennis or golf, they have trainers, they have coaches, they have people that train with them too. So even if it's one that you see, there's many behind the scenes. And that's what I urge you guys to look at. If you're trying and beating your head against the wall of trying to get something done and you're doing it on your own, maybe look at the option of working with somebody like a coach, because I wouldn't knock it until you tried it. And I, something that I'm sure Poppy offers as well as something I offer is a free initial session. Check it out, give it a test run, see if it fits you. I'd really urge you to do that, because I think it might surprise you of what is in that and what that can do for you in your life in every single aspect, not just business or finances. That's what we focus on a lot, but our own life, our relationship, our health, our well-being. And speaking of health, that should be the foundation, guys, because we can have all the skills in the world, all the money in the world, but if you die, what does that matter? At the end of the day, we got to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. What do you say when people say, I don't have the time or the money to do that?
You're full of it. I mean, how do you not? I mean, if you're not doing what you want to do, how do you not have the time or money to do it? I understand the money part to a point, but get resourceful, find a way. We just gave you an opportunity to do a free coaching session. You can get a ton out of that free coaching session that might spark you.
Our phones are going to ring off.
Right? Wait, bring it. But seriously, money can be an object. I understand that. But it's not something that's going to be the be-all, end-all for you. Mm-hmm. If you inspire somebody enough, or you show somebody your heart enough, mm-hmm. they're going to take notice of that. You'll figure it out. Somebody like Gary Vee, for example, he took the time to talk with me that one day. He's a busy guy. He makes millions of dollars. He has a huge company, but he had that time and presence to give me that because of what I was bringing to the table, because of how I approached him, because he understood that I was practicing what I was preaching. So if you guys want to live that life, practice. There's no secret, guys. It's practice. Anybody that gets good at something, it's through repetition. So keep it going.
Yeah, and having somebody having your back on where you're going to mess it up.
Amen.
And what I would say with that as well is, I always used to feel really sad about paying for someone to help you. Mm. And a lot of people feel quite ashamed about it and or get angry about it. Yeah. A lot of people push back. Well, sure. I don't have to. I would be with Mike of get over yourself. A little my story is I'm a slow learner. I've started to pick up speed and I'm an individual. Some people need a certain something to keep them ticking along, whatever that is. I just look after what I need. I stop comparing myself with what other people need. I just look after my own life. And for me, I was one of those people who got myself into a mess because I didn't listen as I went down the way. I didn't have somebody on Facebook triggering this stuff because I had my head in the ground ignoring it all. Mm-hmm. And with nothing, mm-hmm. I got myself really good people around me who were prepared to take a risk. So for example, somebody said, listen, let me help you, I'll give you a free session, then I'll not charge you very much. Mm-hmm. Then, okay, there's a challenge and I'm going to have to make it happen. I didn't have loans, I couldn't sell a house, sure. I could have sold a kidney, but didn't exactly get that way, but I would have done it because I was in that much hell, because I didn't stop myself on the way. Mm-hmm. But really, if I can do that with nobody to say I'll sponsor you or whatever, I made it work because it was important to me.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who is very important to you, a child who's in trouble or whatever it is, we have our own, we place our own importance on whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If your child's in trouble and that's where your focus is, you're going to take care of that person regardless. Mm-hmm. So I would say, please don't make excuses.
No, and ultimately, it's and this is something that Tony speaks about a lot. It's something that really hit home for me. It's leverage. Yes. Because let's use an extreme example, because I love extreme examples. Let's picture somebody you love real quick, whether that's a son, a daughter, a sister, a brother, husband or wife, whoever it is, okay? And I'm holding a gun to their head right now, and I say, hey, you have to live the life you were meant to live. If not, I'm shooting them in the head right now. Are you just going to say, well, I don't have the money to do it?
Oh, gosh.
Give me a break. Really?
I know you forget.
Okay. No, you're not going to just say that. You're going to find a way.
Yeah.
And ultimately it comes down to resourcefulness. But you need to have a stronger why than why not.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And I love that one of what if it goes right?
What if it goes right?
What if nothing could go wrong, what your life could look like? Mm-hmm. Shall we just quickly skim over this for a second?
Sure, let's check it out.
Mindful we're going on. A number of people have written perfectionism is the killer. And in my opinion, perfectionism is the highest level of self-abuse.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I know that one pretty well. Definitely know that one very well. To the point where when I did play hockey, I was a goalie because I wanted all the ownership on me. If I let more in than the other goalie did, I lost. So I wanted the weight of the world on my back. So then there was a way to obtain perfection in hockey was letting no goals in, a shutout. Yeah. So that was something I've chased my whole life, and it worked in hockey to a point. But when you bring it into life, it doesn't work so well. Hockey at the end of the day is still a game. But life, we look at life as a game, and it is to a point. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote an amazing book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. One of my favorite books. But ultimately, it's understanding that it's way more than a game. It's far greater than a game. And being perfect in this game, to be honest, guys, for all of you guys that are seeking it, I would stop, because you're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. We're not meant to be perfect. Our imperfections are what make us who we are, period.
Okay, so in conclusion, how about you take a risk to do it differently sometimes? How about you hear that you're not on your own? This is everywhere.
Yeah.
People experience this everywhere. I promise you, and with absolute confidence, that we could go and get 100 random people from the street, random men, if we wanted to continue that train. And the common theme, I promise, will be connection.
Yes.
And avoidance, and feelings are negative, anger is a negative emotion, pain is a negative, vulnerability is, give me a break. Absolutely not. All emotions are valid. I say it all the time. It's what we do with them that becomes a problem. Seriously, I do not want to see another person ending up really in trouble that cannot see this video. It could help somebody.
Absolutely.
What would you say as a kind of conclusion to what it is has sparked in your mind as we've been talking?
I think at the end of the day, it's this. It's accepting yourself for who you are, and not trying to obtain some perfect image that's not real, because you're gonna be disappointed time and time again when it comes to that. So really understanding that fact, and then being vulnerable. Once you've gotten to the point of saying, okay, I'm not perfect, and then really going deeper even into that, saying, okay, if I'm not perfect, then where are my flaws? And a lot of times we don't like to look at the flaws, we like to look at the upside, but sometimes it's the flaws that get us to the upside, like we spoke about. So look at it and really look at it. And to me, I always talk about pain and that it's not in vain. And really be present in the pain. Feel every single ounce of that horrendous, terrible pain that you possibly can feel. I know you guys don't want to, but do it. And I promise you, when you do, the lesson and the education you're going to receive from it is going to far surpass your expectations. So be vulnerable, be honest, deal with the pain. Don't put your head under the sand with the pain, but deal with it head on, really head on. Because when you do that, it really takes you and your journey to a whole other level, and it really amplifies you to a whole other level to really shine through as the man or woman that you were made to be.
And if you struggle, post somewhere for either of us, and we'll help put you in touch with somebody.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you guys for being here. Take care of yourselves. See you another time.
Have a good night.
I'm going to